These are some of my favorite budget steak cuts that you probably never heard of. They are butcher's secrets, so you're gonna have to really go and search for them. But if you can find them, you're on your way to steak bliss while not breaking the bank. Let's get to the first one, picanha, here we come. This is the picanha. We're gonna start off with this one first because it is one of my favorites and really popular on YouTube videos. The picanha is actually the top sirloin cap. So in the top sirloin, there is a little piece of meat that is prized by Brazilian steakhouses. Yes, that is where it kind of gains popularity. You know those places where they have all you can eat meat and they come by and they, on skewers, and they shave off these pieces of meat? The picanha is their kind of flagship. That's the one that is most recognizable in the Brazilian steakhouse. It also comes in at like $8.99 a pound in my area, so it's economical. It's a great piece of meat that, if taken care of, is a delicious steak cut. And what's better than a meat on a sword? Okay, it's not a sword, it's a meat skewer, but it kind of looks like a sword and it looks cool. Next time you're hosting a barbecue, maybe throw some picanhas on the grill and you will impress your friends. All right, so for our skewers, now the grain goes this way, so we're going to rotate it and cut it against the grain. Then we can curl this over, put our skewer in there, and we are set for some Brazilian style barbecue. And who doesn't like that, right? On some of these fat caps are just a little thick for me, so I'm just gonna take a little bit off. Again, that is customization. You love all that fat, you go ahead and you just get crazy with it. But that kind of is the signature for this, is that fat cap. From here, so we're gonna have all of our steaks. We're gonna curl them over and we're gonna go ahead and punch it through this thing, making a nice half moon shape, trying not to impale ourselves or lose any fingers or, you know, all that stuff. Safety first, people, safety first. That's what we're cooking with swords. Nice and easy. Boom. Now, there we have our skewer of picanhas. Next, we have flap meat. Yes, that's a weird name, isn't it? Flap meat. I don't know if I would order a flap steak on a menu, but whatever. This cut can be found in the bottom sirloin. It reminds me of a flank steak and a skirt steak. It's thicker like a flank steak, but has more marbling like a skirt steak. It has some uneven thicknesses, so you gotta kind of work with that. But man, it is a good, well-marbled piece of meat. And it runs about $10 a pound. Remember, prices are gonna be different in your area of the country, but this is what I can get it for at my local grocery store. Like I said, it reminds me of a flank steak, but remember when flank steaks were cheap? I remember, if you're old enough, I remember when flank steaks were like a throwaway cut and you can get them for super cheap. Now that's like super expensive. So this is your way to go if you're kind of looking for that skirt steak, flank steak flavor and texture. People, you can cut them up into tacos. I like to sear and roast it just like a steak and slice it pretty thin against the bias, and it's super, super good. So don't sleep on your flat meat. Let's go to the next one. All right, next we are at number 3. Man, we are moving right along on here. If you stay to the end of the video, I have a bonus one. Don't tell everybody, but I have a 6th cut I wanna go over. So it's not just 5, it's 6. I'm so excited, let's go. We are talking about the chuck eye for number 3. Now, the chuck eye. I love a chuck eye. So it is kind of like a hack that you can get a cheap ribeye. Well, the chuck and the rib primal cuts are right next to each other. They're neighbors. The ribeye goes through the rib primal cut, and there's a little piece of it that's stuck in the chuck. Now, it's a little bit irregular shaped. It's not like a big, thick ribeye. There's only about 4 to 5 inches of the ribeye stuck in the chuck. Here's the best part. Instead of spending $20 a pound for a ribeye, we're gonna go and get a chuck eye. Get the same kind of meat, but it's gonna be much, much cheaper. We're talking like $8, $10, something like that. If you cut it yourself from the chuck roll, it can go as low as $5 a pound. So the hard part is there's not that much of it. You can only get about 3 or 4 of these chuck eyes per chuck primal cut. So they're hard to find. A lot of butchers don't take the time to cut out the chuck eye. They just make the whole chuck roll. They make it all chuck roast because that's what sells the most. So my prescription for you is to learn how to cut your own chuck roll. And guess what? I got a video for that. I am here to help. So in the description, I will put I have 2 chuck roll videos on how to break them down, and then you can get chuck eye steaks and you can cut your own. It's so rewarding to cut your own steaks. Go ahead and check that out. Like, the link is in the description. Do you want to cut your own steaks and you need some new gear? I am here for you. The Butcher Wizard has a whole line of butcher knives that are available on the Butcher Wizard shop on Amazon. Go check out the link in the description. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. Now back to the video. All right, for number 4, we are headed to the Denver steak. Now we're going to stay in that chuck primal cut, and then the Denver steak is so good. It has a special place in my heart. It kind of eats like a New York strip. So you cut it about 1.25 inches, and it is great grilled or sauteed, seared, smoked, whatever you want to do to it, it is ready for that. It's cheap because it comes from the chuck. So again, it comes from the chuck roll, the same cut that we got our chuck eyes from. You can also get your Denver steak from. And guess what? I got a video for that to show you how to do that and how to cook it. Go ahead and check the link in the description. As always, I got you covered. Let's see what else we have in store. Man, so much value today. What are we doing here? I'm going to give you 5, but then there's a bonus. I'm going to give you 6 of these cuts. And so stick around. We're going to do 5 next, but then stick around for number 6 because I'm going to show you one of my favorites for I've saved the best for last for number 6, but let's go on to number 5. All right, number 5, we're going to talk about the flat iron steak. Now, the flat iron steak is skyrocketing in popularity. You see it popping up on menus all over the place, but for good reason. It's tender. It has good marbling. It has a thinner steak, I know, but it's still really good. And if you treat it the right way, if you do a hot, fast sear on it and then don't overcook it, it's so good. It is in the chuck primal cut. Again, all these great steak cuts come from the chuck, and they're like secrets. These are the secrets your butcher wants you to know because he wants you to buy some flat iron steaks. All right, I know I'm using a lot of terminology, primal cut, sub-primal cut, things like that, but I'm gonna break it down for you nice and simple, nice and quick. The cow is broken down into primal cuts. And then we take our primal cuts and we break that down into sub-primal cuts. We take the sub-primal cuts and then we break those down into retail cuts. So I'll run through this whole hierarchy with this example of the flat iron steak. We start with the chuck primal cut. The sub-primal cuts from the chuck are the shoulder clod and the chuck roll. But our flat iron steak comes out of the shoulder clod. So we take our sub-primal cut of the shoulder clod and then break it down into even further to the top blade roast. And then we take that top blade roast and cut the flat iron steaks from that. So we've gone through all of these, primal cut, sub-primal cut to different retail cuts. And it's just so many ways they can cut a beef. It's crazy. So that is the butchery hierarchy in a nutshell. This is where a little bit of knowledge about how butchery works can save you some money. So we have a top blade roast, which I got out of my local grocery store for $8 a pound. The flat iron steaks, if you buy just those, are $13.50 a pound. Guess what? Top blade roast is just 2 flat iron steaks. There's this big piece of connective tissue that runs horizontally through the top blade roast. If we go ahead and we take off both pieces of meat and removing that connective tissue, we now have 2 flat iron steaks. So then look how much money we saved. We already saved $5.50 a pound. I'm gonna go ahead and demo that next. So here we go. So there's a thick piece of connective tissue that goes right through the center of this top blade roast. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our 6-inch boning knife and we're going to cut on either side of this big thick piece of connective tissue. So it's pretty easy. We're just going to start by pulling back just a little bit. This is slightly frozen because I put it in the freezer a little bit just to firm it up. And we're just going to take our boning knife And you're just gonna go on either side of this piece of connective tissue. See it run all the way through. We'll peel back as we cut and making sure we're staying on either side of it. And then we can also come back after we're done and like make sure that we get all that silver skin off. This is the case, like this is one top blade roast. It's actually 2 flat iron steaks, but we saved a bunch of money doing it. Again, from here, we're just gonna go ahead and slide underneath that silver skin, come back. Because this is the portion that's really tough about these top blade steak. If you have a top blade steak or whatever, this silver skin right here, that is the part that is a problem. Silver skin on this side. All right, so here's our first flat iron steak. We'll go back to this one, take the silver skin off of this one. All right, so very quick and simple. We went ahead and made our 2 flat iron steaks, and they are ready for the grill. They're ready for the saute pan, you know, just however you want to cook them. But we just took a top blade steak and cut it in half, basically, taking that silver skin out of the middle and then making 2 beautiful steaks out of it. So let's head to the next thing. Because you made it to the end of the video, that means you are awesome and you need a bonus. I'm going to give it to you. Next, we're going to talk about the Teres Major. It kind of looks like a mini beef tenderloin, and it is lean and tender. It's not quite as tender as a beef tenderloin, but it's really, really close. It has what I like to call big, beefy flavor. Big, beefy flavor. I want to tell you the story behind this. So the Butcher Widget is going to be coming out with a cookbook. I know, crazy, right? So we're going to be coming out with a cookbook, and me and my wife wrote, well, she did all of the writing. And she would ask me, like, how do you explain how the flavor and the texture of this cut of meat? And I would always say, it has big, beefy flavor. And I didn't mean to, it just kind of came out that way. But I would say it for everything. To the point where it just became this running joke where she'd be like, oh, I bet it's got big, beefy flavor. So I don't know if we're gonna put it on t-shirts or hats or something, but I need you guys to really embrace the big, beefy flavor of the Teres Major. So yes, big beefy flavor for the win. Let's go. The Teres Major can run you from like $7 a pound to about $10 a pound, depending on how in bulk you want to buy it. But it is a great cut of meat. It goes by several names. There's a petite tender, there's a shoulder tender. Do not confuse it with the mock tender, which comes out of the round, which is neither tender nor flavorful. So it's really a tough cut of meat. So if you get this big thing that says mock tender, not a Teres Major. Man, why do butchers have so many words to go ahead and classify these different steaks? I don't know. But so the Teres Major can be cooked in all sorts of ways. It can be seared, grilled. You can grind it. I know there's people who want really lean ground beef because the Teres Major is super lean, kind of like a tenderloin. And you can go ahead and get that texture and flavor for your ground beef that's super lean. Has a ton of uses. So my favorite is just to simply sear it whole, slice it thin, and call it a day. Man, thank you all so much for coming with me on this budget tour of steaks. So I will see you on the next one.